Good evening. I'm Donna Van Cabbage, Director of Development and Marketing for the Alliance for Positive Health. I'm so pleased to welcome you to our second virtual Columbia Greene Garden Party. I really was hoping to greet you in person this year, but due to the pandemic, the Alliance for Positive Health made the decision to keep this year's event once again virtual. Tonight's evening will include a tour of a beautiful garden in the Columbia County area. In addition, many of you will have the opportunity to sample a selection of wines provided by 2C Winery located in Germantown, New York. Finally, our online auction is live with getaways, gift cards, and some other fabulous items. I would first like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Hudson River Bank and Trust Foundation, TKG Real Estate, and Finger Insurance, and all of our honorary committee members who have already supported tonight's event. This support helps to sustain the vital services we provide to individuals living with and affected by HIV/AIDS and other chronic diseases. I would also like to thank you, our viewers, for supporting the Alliance for Positive Health tonight. I hope you enjoy. Before we get started with the event, I would like to inform you that this is an interactive experience. If you are watching via our Facebook or YouTube pages, you may leave a comment below to interact with our staff who are available to answer any questions you might have. You can also feel free to email any questions or comments to development@alliancefph.org. Keep the comments coming all night, and feel free to give a shout out to all of our dedicated staff who continue to provide vital services to our clients during these uncertain times. Thank you, Alliance staff, for your incredible work that you do. During this past year, the Alliance has provided services to over 3,000 clients through our care management, nutrition programs, medical transportation, housing assistance, over 650 HIV, STI, and hepatitis C testing, and so much more. Since the pandemic hit, the staff at Alliance have been working nonstop to ensure that each and every one of our 3,000 plus clients are staying healthy and safe. By delivering food, providing emergency housing support, hosting virtual group sessions, and more, the Alliance has been providing excellent care for your neighbors throughout this pandemic and will continue to do so long after it's gone. I want to let you know you can help the Alliance by supporting us with a donation for all the vital program services our staff provide to the clients we serve. $50, $100, or even $1,000 will go a long way to help support the local services provided in our 17-county region in northeastern New York. We appreciate your generosity this evening and thank you for considering a gift that is meaningful to our clients in your neighborhood. And finally, we would love for you to share your own personal garden party from your home. Feel free to send photos during the event and share on social media using the hashtag CGGP2021. I would like to say a heartfelt thank you to you and our sponsors on behalf of the many clients we have served and continue to serve throughout your community because of your generosity. Now, let the event begin. Cheers.
Welcome to Towsey Winery. My name is Kimberly. We are located in the heart of the Hudson Valley. We're in our 12th year. We're a family-owned winery. Our vineyard is right down on the Hudson. We grow Pinot Noir, Cabernet Franc, Riesling, and Chardonnay. And I'm excited that you're with me today to enjoy this tasting. We're gonna start with the Sparkling Queen. This is a really fun way to start off your party. It can also be enjoyed as an after-dinner sipper. I'm gonna pour with you here. Mine is nice and chilled, ready to enjoy. So get your fancy glass out, enjoy your bubbles. This has nice notes of tropical fruits, refreshing. It's on the dry side. And that is the Sparkling Queen. Cheers. So next up, we're gonna enjoy the Queen of Claremont. This is a nice semi-dry, refreshing white. It is a Riesling, Traminette, and Valvin Muscat blend. It's what we're most well known for. This is great as a pre-dinner sipper as well, but can also be suggested to enjoy with spicy Asian food, Indian food, something with heat and a little spice. It's semi-dry. We find it to have notes of melon and lime, which makes it nice and refreshing. You immediately get that fresh lime. Cheers. Definitely a bestseller. The colder, the crisper, and the more the room temperature gets to it, the sweet notes come out. So that's what makes it popular, I think. It's very diverse. And it's called the Queen of Claremont, which makes it fun. So next up, we're gonna try a nice dry rosé. So the rosé is a Cabernet Franc Lemberger blend. This is gonna have nice strawberries in the nose, a hint of acidity with a dry finish. Every year we triple our production as it's very popular. We are down to our last 2 pallets of rosé this year. It's going to be missed, and I'm really happy that I get to share it with you guys, and you can enjoy it at your garden party. Lots of strawberries in the nose. It fools you, although it's a dry rosé. It has beautiful fresh strawberries. Cheers. I hope you taste those strawberries. So then we have the Riot. The Riot's gonna be a medium body, fruit forward red. I say medium body because it's not one of these big heavy reds. This is a really beautiful red for New York. It's soft and full of dark flavors. So the Riot is a Cab Franc Lemberger blend, and if you've ever heard of us, you know that we are well known for our Cabernet Franc. It's perfect for a garden party or an afternoon red, a lighter meal. It has an amazing nose. All dark berries, and wait till you taste it. It's really soft. Thank you for letting me join you. Thank you for drinking with us. Stay healthy, drink local wine. Cheers to you.
My name is Ralph Moranti. I'm the Ryan White Case Manager at the Alliance for Positive Health, and I've been working with the HIV and Aging program for the last several months with Chris.
My name is Chris Holmes. I work as a client support specialist for the Ryan White Emergent Communities program, and I've been here over 2 years and been working for Ralph happily for the last few months with the HIV and aging.
So you were in HIV and aging before I was.
Yes, but you're the main facilitator.
I'm the new facilitator,
Yeah.
but I didn't start this project. You started it with Michael,
Right.
And even before that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how this all started?
Well, this was actually, the HIV and aging was the brainchild of Shane Roberts and Michael Kennedy, who both recognized that the population who is currently living long-term with HIV is over 50 years old. They pretty much knocked it together, presented it to the powers that be, and shortly after that we started putting it into place. We put it into action over a year ago when other agencies, including the New York State Department of Health, were still trying to figure out how to have these conversations and who to have the conversations with.
Now, some of our folks have been HIV positive for 30-some years.
Plus.
And our oldest member of the group is 80.
Yes, and our youngest member is just turned 45 a few months ago.
Yeah. So, and some have been newly diagnosed at that age, but others have been around for a long time living with the virus
Yes.
and learning how to function. So that one of the neat things about our group has been the collaboration between the generations.
Yes. One of the things that we recognized in the beginning is the contribution that this population of people had to the population of people who were coming up behind them. Specifically, a younger generation might take advice and encouragement from an older generation, more of a parental figure. We've seen the group rally around each other, be able to be an immense amount of support even when that person didn't realize that support was available.
The pandemic and the HIV and aging group kind of happened at the same time. And a lot of programs, the pandemic created a terrible problem and a challenge. But I think what the pandemic forced us into was a great opportunity.
Yes.
Because our people are scattered around the entire catchment basin that's served by the Alliance for Positive Health. So we have people that are down in the lower Hudson Valley counties, up here in the Albany area and far afield, some of whom don't have access to transportation on their own. And so because of the pandemic, we transitioned into Zoom meetings and phone conferences. These people have found support when they would have been totally isolated otherwise.
Absolutely.
Living with the virus and now living with the pandemic.
Absolutely. When Michael actually started putting these groups into place and actually making them into action, they were specifically all Zoom. This was post-COVID beginning, and through this entirety of the COVID pandemic, we have been able to keep the maintenance going with the clients attending these groups. A lot of times, as Ralph said, they're as far as the lower Hudson all the way up to Plattsburgh. We really don't have a limit on as far as we could go in New York State to be able to have HIV and aging members come from, which is really a huge blessing. And as he said with the Zoom, it absolutely adds an element into their lives that wasn't there before. These are people who may suffer from social isolation due to their previous history with being discriminated, being HIV positive, that basically we've embraced an absolutely phenomenal way to be able to communicate with them and keep communicating with them. So even though they may be somewhat isolated geographically, they're not isolated support-wise.
Well, I think of that one client that we have, and that person most folks are not aware of their status. They aren't able to discuss. They're out in a very rural part of the population, don't have the transportation, and don't have the support, but every 2 weeks they Zoom in and know that the whole community is around them and listening to them, supporting them. We went through the holidays and the transition and the kind of grief around that, and really just kept buoying them up. And then they have things that they add to the rest of the group as well. So I think that one person I'm thinking about was the group has been so essential for them to be able to thrive and survive, not only living with HIV, but now living with the compounded pandemic isolation.
Referrals generally come from inside of the agency, from other programs. Whenever we work in referrals in our programs, specifically they're generated from other members to other programs to other program managers. Usually a necessity-based referral is what most people are used to dealing with. Like,
So people that need housing and
right,
people need
transportation, housing, food for life, housing retention, that sort of thing. Those are all necessity programs. We're kind of an unnecessary program, but having a necessary need. So when we get a referral, the first thing that we do is talk to that person. We spend our time getting to know them, seeing how they can fit into this group where they may have not fit into another group because of their, increased isolation or location or something like that. As Ralph said, a lot of these people are still struggling with HIV identity. Is it something that they're, promoting from themselves? Are they, being very vocal about their HIV status? And a lot of people of a certain generation just don't because they're afraid. Shane Roberts, who was one of the original founders of the idea for this, had actually pointed out that, these were the pioneers, these were the leaders, these were the civil rights activists, these were the advocates before advocates became a paid position. These were the people who changed the face of this community and allow it to be what it is today. And we owe them this. We owe them so much more than this. So, as far as it can go is as far as we're going to take it.
I thought was really touching the one fellow who's one of our younger members, but who really was ignorant so much about HIV and transmission and safe practices and whatnot. I know you and our health educator were able to really...
Right. With the wonderful thing about this opportunity with the HIV and aging is that we've had so many situations that have blossomed from a simple conversation. What we're talking about is a 45-year-old man of color who had never actually gotten sex education conversation from any of his providers, from his physicians, from the case managers, anything like that. And we were able to construct a program just specifically for health education, especially sexual health education of somebody who is HIV positive, undetectable, and how that looks to the rest of the world when they're having him as a partner.
That's one of the neat things. Some of our meetings are just support meetings. The folks zoom in, we zoom in. We may start with a topic, but it's really not our topic, it's their topic. Yeah. So wherever the group, the members that are zooming in that day feel they need to have a conversation, that's where the conversation goes for the hour.
Yeah.
But then once a month or every other month, we do have some special speakers that come in, like that health educator. We've had someone come in, a pharmacist that comes and explain medications, interactions. We've got insurance people that are coming in to talk about the whole idea that, like, at the beginning of the epidemic, everybody was contracting the disease and were like selling their life insurance because they were going to die in the next few months. And now people are living, so what do we do? Are they insurable? Is there health insurance? Is there life insurance? How can they activate that? How can they provide for their families after they're gone years from now?
Yeah. We had one of our participants that had actually begun a chain communication with all of her children on having them chip into her death benefit. So basically, it wouldn't be this big explosive expense at the end of her life. And that was one of the conversations that kind of sparked having a speaker come in and actually explain life insurance. Because life insurance today for somebody who is HIV positive is completely different than it was for somebody who was diagnosed with AIDS back in the late 90s.
Right.
So, people that were flat out denied or had to rely on their communities to pay for their final expenses are now having the opportunities to plan their last moments and their last expenses and plan them in a way that it's not going to be destructive to their family element. So, which a lot of times it can be. Those get to be more than what people are used to.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories has to do with Bill Farragon. When I transitioned in February 2020 and I had come to work one day, he took me aside and said that it was good that I was doing what I was doing, because being who I am, I was able to have conversations that other people were still trying to figure out how to have. Just before he passed away, I had passed him in the Albany office, and he had asked how the HIV and aging was going. And I said, it's good. We're having conversations that most people are still trying to figure out how to have. And he simply closed his eyes, smiled, and nodded his head, and it was probably one of my favorite moments that I will ever have in this agency.
One of the good things too about, I think, for the folks that join the group, they don't have to be enrolled in any other project in the agency. They don't have to meet all of the strict requirements of enrollment.
Right.
They just need to be HIV positive and over 45.
Right. We've had a good amount of referrals from outside of the agency, from people that, potentially had nothing to do with any program that's in this building. And at the bottom of the day, or at the end of the day rather, it was still embracing to them that we would have a place for them and not make them, go through the requirements that's, required for entering a program, residency verification, income verification. As Ralph said, just simply being HIV positive and over 45 years old.
And so that's certainly where we appreciate all the donations that are coming in, because we're not funded by our regular grant programs.
Yeah.
So the HIV and Aging is a service of the Alliance that really benefits from your gifts and your donations at this time to fund all of the things that we do, whether it's the food pantry work, whether it's transportation, access to insurance, intensive case management, finding homes and houses. But our program certainly really appreciates the extra and added help there.
Yeah, every bit of money that is, donated graciously to this agency pays for program services, that pays for client services, which is, at the end of the day, one of the most important things about this agency, is that at the end of the day, the client gets what they need, what they want, what they may not even realize they may have a use for. So it's phenomenal that people can take something of themselves and give it to another person and make that other person's life beneficial.
It's certainly really cool to see the folks, so many that we deal with in all of our programs, but I know in the HIV and Aging program, they have a generativity of their own. They want to help others. I see that so much with the group. They just dive in and support each other, and then work outside that box as well.
Yeah.
So I think when you support the Alliance, it's not staff and programs, it's people, neighbors that are trying to live a better, fuller life, a more healthier life, a life with better relationships, and that's kind of what we foster, and what your support and your encouragement really helps neighbors.
Hi everybody, my name is Peter Bavacqua, and I am here with Deborah Darcy in her beautiful garden in Livingston, New York. Deborah has been to many of our garden parties for the Alliance for Positive Health over the years, and she has, as I said, graciously opened up her spectacular garden, and we're going to talk a bit about it today. And I've been very happy and proud to be part of this garden and developing a friendship with Deborah.
Thanks, Peter. Well, my husband and I love the Alliance for Positive Health and the garden parties every year. I've been to a lot of them, every time with a hat. Some of them so large that I can't actually get through the walkways. I've got a dip. And I'm very happy to welcome you all here to our garden. Peter has been instrumental in making it what it is. He came up with the original design and works with me every year on additional pieces.
Yes, it keeps on, we keep on evolving it, and what's wonderful about this garden, I think, is the development of a friendship, and because it shows in the work when you're enjoying what you're doing and you work together as a team, the end result is always, I think, pretty wonderful.
Yeah, I would agree. And it's just wonderful to have this ongoing relationship where we're both friends now and see each other socially, as well as just have this relationship in the garden and develop new areas. And Peter seems to really get when I say, oh, I think we need to do something with,
Right.
You're like,
I go, oh, you mean,
yeah. And sort of he understands where I'm coming from, and we both are lovers of English style gardens, and I think that's reflected in this garden.
Right, this garden we call the Dixter Garden because one of our favorite gardens is Great Dixter in England. So that evokes the spirit of this place here, but the whole garden, which is 4 acres on this side?
Yep, 4 acres.
It is various spaces that move from the feelings from one to the other in a series of rooms that also reflect shape, color, and texture in the plantings that we've chosen to use. Deborah, in the early days when I met Deborah and she came over to my garden, we have a small hydrangea walk.
Which I loved.
And she
fell in love with
she
it.
said, I want hydrangeas. So as you will see, there are hydrangeas
He
here.
gave me hydrangeas.
And another thing that Deborah and her husband Mark said that was important to them was that they didn't want the garden to feel new. You really wanted it to feel as though it evolved over time.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been striving for.
And the other key point was we said we wanted secrets and surprises.
That's right, yes.
So we
yes.
didn't want it to all be laid out in front of you. We wanted it to be like, ooh, what's behind this?
Yes, exactly.
What's behind this hedge, and what's behind this wall, and what's down this path. So
And it keeps it fresh, and
Yeah.
you keep coming back to see, well, what else is going on?
yeah, and I think the fact that we're restrained by we're 4 acres, but we're on 2 roads, so we
Right.
come to a sort of a pizza pie point where they meet, and because we're restrained by that, it sort of seems it's a good thing that we can. You have to really want something to put it in. It
Yes.
has to be.
And everything has to work.
Everything has
Everything
to work.
has to work hard.
Yeah,
So it's not as though we just have
endless.
endless spaces to meander, but
Yeah.
it does need to. You need to have an objective, and really,
Yeah.
and everything we put in needs to really
But it
work
does,
hard.
all the paths and the hedges and everything do make it seem bigger, I think,
Yeah.
than 4 acres.
Yes, because we've closed it into various rooms
Yeah.
with levels up and down,
Yeah.
and gates that you need to go through, plants you need to push aside.
And it's been a crazy year this year. I mean, last year was weird in itself, but this year has been a crazy year. I mean, July, we had like 16 inches of rain.
In the first 10 days of July, it was crazy.
Which has been amazing for all the fruit that's gone bonkers.
And now we've been in drought for a good
Yeah.
while, so everything is
Yeah,
sort of...
everything's suffering
But
a
you know
little
how
bit.
gardeners are, we complain all the time, oh, you should have
It's
been...
not the right rain. It's
right,
not.
right, and you should have been here last week, everything was perfect last week, but you know...
I saw that sign in my mother's friend's garden when I was a teenager, and it's a sign in the garden that said, you should have been here last week, it was perfect, and I didn't get it. I was like, what the hell does that mean? Now I'm like, that would come out of my mouth all the time.
I want that
yeah.
sign.
Yeah, exactly. And then Mark
Well,
will
your
say to me,
birthday's coming up.
yeah, you can get, Mark will say to me, so how's this rain, Deb? And I'm like, it's too heavy. It's too heavy. It's not long enough. That's not going to do anything. It's like, God, it's never the right rain
Never
for
the-
you.
never the right
It's never
thing.
right. So yeah, that's a gardener's moan. My favorite feature of the garden is always the most recent.
I was just going to say, yeah, and that makes
The new
sense.
child,
That
the
makes
new
sense.
child, yeah. It's,
We did a wonderful, on the north side of the house, we, early on, we found a fountain that we really loved. and set that there. And that was part of the original plan of the garden, that it was
Yeah.
always going to be a fountain there. And we found a wonderful romantic fountain that sits there, and there were just rings of gravel around it, and it sat sort of in lawn. And the plan was eventually to do a garden around it, and this year
We did it.
we did it.
Yeah. And now we need to do another little thing to make it into a
It
little
always
private
keeps on
room.
going.
Always a little, yeah.
It's a shady. It's on the north side of the house, and it's also it gets a fair amount of shade, so it's kind of a woodlandy space, which really adds to the effect. So there's lots of hellebores and ferns and hosta.
It's a difficult space though, because it gets, when that afternoon sun hits it, it's like mostly shady, and then it's like walloped with this just afternoon heat.
Yeah,
So it's done really well, I think.
I think so too. So that's your favorite space right
That's
now.
my favorite space right now, as well as the amazing berm across the road that you made for us.
Well,
That's
that
beautiful.
was really a joy to work. Well, it's all been a joy to work on, but that because it takes such a different tone.
Yeah.
And it's much more architectural.
Yeah, so the concept behind the berm was that we wanted to have a landmass to protect the back of the barn, but not garden, because we have a lot of garden already, and we wanted to have something sculptural. And my husband loves utility with design, so it was like, what can we do that's not just design for design's sake,
Right.
but it has a purpose to it. And so, you know, we can see that we're going to use it for seating and picnics and
It's very much like an amphitheater
Yeah.
in its feeling of the round layers.
yeah. So it's beautiful. And you see people driving past and they're like, what's that? Yeah.
So yeah, I love that too. I think that's, at the moment, that's my favorite.
So whenever we do a project, and this is true with the house as well, we always have like a muse or an idea of where
A
it's
sub-story.
yeah, of where it's come from.
Right.
And so the story behind the Italian terrace was that we were having this amazing outdoor dinner in Italy on a terrace in Rome. And it was like, we need this. This is so beautiful. And it had trees growing and the gravel, and it was just so beautiful. And so we took pictures and we sent you
Yes.
like tons of
What can we
information.
do
What
that-
can we
that-
do?
And the idea was not to replicate it,
No.
but just to, here's the objective and here's sort of the direction we'd like to go in. How can we take this and really make it our own? Which is,
Yeah.
I think, the great part of
Which
the
is
design.
true. Which is true of this garden being an homage to Great Dixter.
To Great Dixter,
as well.
but yet we've used a lot of American plants and well, you know, yes, it is, because Great Dixter likes to experiment, which we do in here as well.
Some things that probably haven't worked over the years have been the rhododendrons,
The
which seem
rhododendrons.
like they're in the perfect place. Like,
They're under some
Under-
evergreens. They're understory, but we think maybe the ground here is too
I think it's too dry.
it's too dry, but also too limey. They'd like it more acidic. But anyhow, that's
That's really been the only kind
Yeah.
of, and they're growing. They just are not
they're
kind
not
of,
as right.
but everything else is just amazing.
You know, one thing though that I think was very smart of you guys when you bought the house and the property, and I think it's really important to anyone who has a new property to not do anything right away. Just to
live with it.
sit with it, live with it, not only to see what plants come up and what you have, but also how you maneuver in the space. What areas you gravitate towards, what areas you want to entertain in. Do you want to talk about
Well,
that?
also coming from New Zealand, there's so many, like peonies didn't grow where I live. It's too mild, it's too temperate. You can garden all year round, which is actually what I love about North America.
You can put your feet up.
Is that you can put your feet, but you see the bones of a garden.
Yeah.
And it's never like that in Auckland. where I'm from. You garden all year. So I love the fact that it's gone in winter, that it's just this shell, and we can see through the hedges, and it's just beautiful as well. But peonies are my favorite flower, and to find out that I could grow them. So everyone raises their we're like,
You think
oh.
there's a lot of hydrangeas
Yeah,
here.
every year I put in like 20 more peonies. I adore them. They're so fleeting, I think is why they're such a special plant. But in the last couple of years, we've been growing agapanthus as well. Now my father-in-law would turn over in his grave if he knew I had all those agapanthus. Oh my God, agapanthus are like a weed in New Zealand.
Here they're so rare and exotic.
Yeah. So it's just like so wonderful to have agapanthus in pots, but they have to go into the greenhouse because otherwise they wouldn't survive the winter.
You brought up an interesting thing about the winter here versus where you're from, and that how important it is to really have strong structure in the garden.
Yeah.
And many times in the Northeast, we think, well, there's no gardening in winter, it's just all dead. And the garden doesn't look good, and it doesn't need to look good, but with good structure, with hedges and evergreens, and you really can develop a beautiful winter garden, which you were really keen on.
And the amazing thing in well, it's in summer as well as winter, but when our friend came and did drone footage of the place, everything is you guys did such an amazing job. Everything is in straight lines, and the sight lines all work, and it's like how you can take I can see it on a drawing, how that works on a drawing, but to translate it into actual solid into the earth is amazing. It was an amazing job.
Having a great landscape contractor, and we use Twin Brooks.
Oh, they're amazing.
And they are in Millbrook, but I think they've moved maybe. But anyhow, it's Twin Brooks Gardens, and they really are.
Yeah. Fantastic guys.
We could not really achieve the quality of what's here without them.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a joy for both of us, and just working in this garden, on the landscape, developing ideas together, and that's the real joy of it. Is just working as a team. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
My garden husband.
Yes.
Hi, I'm John Maglino, the Marketing Coordinator at the Alliance. We hope you enjoyed this unique virtual event and that you'll continue to support our ongoing efforts to provide vital services for vulnerable individuals in our community, especially throughout these difficult times. Our online auction will remain open following the event, and we encourage you to continue bidding on the fun offerings we have available. To make a direct contribution to our program services, you can visit the link provided. We look forward to celebrating with you in person at future events as soon as it is safe to do so. On behalf of the entire Alliance for Positive Health team, thank you for joining us today.